Let us add the ability to kill enemies by jumping on them, doing something like having the player jump, fall into the enemy, and jump again from the enemy, using the enemy's head as a base. To do so, we are going to have the logic split between the player and the enemy. Generally, when you code, if you want to code the death of the enemy, the code that corresponds to that should be inside the enemy scene. And the stomping code, the attacks on the player, should be inside the player scene. We logically keep code related to a certain area of our game inside the corresponding scene in that area. So I'm going to go to the enemy scene first to allow it to die when the player hits it. To detect that, we are going to add a new area, a new rectangle here above the enemy, so that when the player falls into it, the enemy will detect that it got stomped. We're going to create that now. Let's create a new area 2D node. So select enemy, press Ctrl A to add a node, and look for area 2D. This area 2D, we'll call it stomp detector. It will detect the player stomping the enemy. In the collision tab, we're going to change the layer. We don't want this to be on any layer. The area will not be monitorable. You can also uncheck the monitorable property here, and it will mask the player layer. It will mask layer 1. So when the player enters the area, we know that the enemy got stomped. Now we need a collision shape to detect something entering in the area. Select Stomp Detector, Ctrl A, and look for, once again, collision shape 2D. For the shape, add a new rectangle, as usual. These are fairly precise. I like to use them because they are mostly bug-free, and some shapes have inconsistent behaviors. Now, size the shape so it's a bit larger than the enemy's collider. We need to be generous with the player to make the gameplay nice, to make it easy to kill enemies. And we're actually going to do something. Right now, our Stomp Detector node is at the base of the enemy. I'm going to select it, press W to enter move mode, and shift click to move the stomp area right above the enemy's collision shape. You will see that we will use that from the code so that when your player enters the stomp detector coming from below the enemy, it will not kill it instantly. That would be a bit strange. And then we want to do the same, move the collision shape back so that it aligns with the enemy's collider. We can change the color of our stomp detector. To do so, select either the stomp detector or the collision shape 2D. Go down to the canvas item category in the inspector, visibility, and you want to change the modulate property. It's going to multiply the color by the color we select with the color picker. So blues tend to work pretty well. We can make our stomp detector a dark blue, we can select a purple or a green. This multiplication of the base color, of that base transparent blue, will always darken the color. And this is why some colors like the red, for example, give you a really muddy dark tone. That's why you want to choose something that aligns with the base original blue. Blue or green will work well for that modulation. This is useful if you couple it with the debug visible collision shape option in the debug menu for the project, which makes it so when you play the game, you will see the collision shapes, like so.